live from Virginia Mason Athletic Center.
It's cozy
with Hawk
in here.
bloggers Brian Nemhauser. Brian, thanks for hopping on with us, man.
Happy to do it. Good to see you both.
I know you're always doing double duty. You've got obviously Hawk Blogger and everything you run over there, and then you're so generous with your time with jumping on and sharing your observations. We were hoping to just tap into a few.
Let's do it.
Okay. I will start by asking you the number one question I always get.
Yeah.
And I never know how to answer it.
Okay.
So I'm throwing this your way. This is just a volley, a hot potato situation. I am constantly asked about the offensive line. Here's the problem. You and I and everyone knows it's impossible to evaluate. You don't have pads on. But from what you can see, not only kind of, you know, what's your feeling so far, even about their confidence level in it, but what are some lingering questions you have about this group that you're going to find yourself tracking throughout camp?
Yeah, I think a little bit of a unique position because I was in Mobile, Alabama, and I've seen Zabel in pads against the best that there was to offer in the draft this year. I saw him stone every single one of those players. I saw them request him to try to beat him, and none of them could do it. And I saw him do it from multiple positions. So I think the Seahawks drafted the best offensive lineman they've grabbed in the draft in maybe a couple decades. So I think it's a while since we've seen a player like Zabel. Now he's a rookie. It's hard for rookies. You know, it's a leap from the level he was playing. But I'm really confident in the kind of player that they got and the person that they got. Charles Cross already made a leap last year. I don't think there's a lot of questions. He put on 15 pounds when I talked to him of muscle. He's bigger than he was last year. And I think this outside zone is just a hand and glove fit for him. So that's another one I'm pretty confident in. Abe Lucas, people seem to forget about Abe Lucas. This is a guy who, by his own words, played on a flat tire last year, even when he was coming back. 38% of the pressures that came for the Seahawks offensive line came from the right tackle position before he joined. Only 20% came after he joined. So that was with a flat tire. He's in great shape. That's 3 spots. And then you got, Olu, who played last year, played well, and you've got a battle at right guard. So I think there's far fewer question marks than there were a year ago. And you've got a grizzly veteran in John Benton and Rick Dennison and that whole group that have been teaching this system for decades. And they're out there telling the guys where to be, exactly when to be. And this is really, I think, the best situated the Seahawks offensive line room and the coaching staff has been for a while. So I'm actually very bullish even before pads go on.
Do you think that is the group that could potentially outperform expectations the most on this team? I know new quarterback, you've got a new wide receiver group, but I think everybody kind of nationally has downgraded this offensive line. But you mentioned it feels a lot more stable than it's ever been.
It's funny, Curtis, is, I put a poll question out months ago. Which is going to be fixed first, the Mariners offense or the Seahawks offensive line?
Now, why do you have to do that?
And look, the Mariners offense has been pretty good this year. I know they got to add, but they're like 4th, 5th in runs in the AL. They're up there, and I don't think anyone expected that. I think you're right that the offensive line, I'll put this really bold statement out there. I think by the end of the year, people are going to look at the Seahawks and say the best position group on offense is the offensive line.
Wow.
That's a bold take. I like it.
Yeah.
I like it.
I wanted to, you mentioned the coaching staff and the impact of that. And I remember John Schneider having an interview. It was during the John Schneider show. It was with Wyman and Bob. And he mentioned the coaching staff. And at the time, he got some flack because they had not signed Will Fries. And he was talking about how much success they've had in terms of, he's like, we've drafted well. Our guys have gotten contracts elsewhere when they aren't staying with us. We don't think we have a talent identification problem. We think we have a development problem. And even though he got some pushback for that, I thought he was also right in that, whether it's been talking with Ray Roberts or a few other guys, there are times when you go, are you, using these guys the best that you possibly can? What kind of impact do you think that coaching staff, a new scheme, Kubiak, could have, not just on the development of these guys, but is the ceiling for this team a little higher than we expect? It seemed like such a bad fit with Grubb.
Yeah, I think that anyone that's worked in any work environment, if you've got the boss not aligned with the people that are doing the work, bad things tend to happen. And the employees that are trying to figure it out are kind of caught in the middle. And I don't think that's a bad thing about Ryan Grubb or a bad thing about Mike McDonald. It just, they caught what they could at that point when who was available to hire an offensive coordinator. And I really like Ryan Grubb. I think he's going to do great at Alabama. I think he's got a big future still ahead of him. But it just wasn't a good fit for what Mike Macdonald wants. And now you've got one of the, if not the classic offensive system in the NFL here. It's not a question of whether the system works or how it works or what to call or what kind of players you need or how to coach it. There's no questions. And last year, all there were questions, right? Like, how's Ryan Grubb going to do in the NFL? How's Scott Huff, never been an offensive line coach? Like, they were the only two coaches on that staff that had coached together before. Like, there's so many questions. And now the coaching staff is solidified. It's going to do what Mike Macdonald wants. And even yesterday, there was a great moment. I don't know which coach screamed it out, but there was a play in team drills where Kenneth Walker was running to the left and broke through, and the coach was like, run the bleep off the ball. Like, that's the way to do it. And, like, they are so focused, and they know what they're looking for. And Mike Macdonald, he smiles, doesn't often smile in press conference. You ask him what he's looking for, he's like running off the rock. And so this is going to be a team that has an identity this year. One thing we all talked about last year is, who is this team? Yeah. Like, what are they? And I don't think that's going to be a question. Now, I think the questions for this year are, do they have enough talent on offense? I think the wide receiver room, I have questions about whether it's dynamic enough, whether it's explosive enough. But I was doing some research yesterday, and it's interesting. You look at the highest scoring offenses in the NFL, explosive plays are a big part of it, but first down offense, how many yards do you average on first down? That is a highest correlation with whether you're a high-scoring offense. You go back to the 2005 Seahawks, that was not a particularly explosive offense, but you could count on them getting 5-6 yards on first down and having the defense on their heels. That's the kind of team I think Mike Macdonald wants to see. I think Ken Walker is a big part of that. I think a lot of fans have kind of decided he's injured too often. I think this is a guy that, if he's around, and I think he's going to be, is an offensive player of the year level talent. And what I'm looking for is for him to have a meeting of the minds with John Benton the way Tom Cable did with Marshawn Lynch, to really run within the framework of the offense.
Yeah, that's always been kind of a criticism of Ken Walker's run style, is that he's always kind of looking to hit the home run and leaves some yardage where, he's getting chewed up within the first couple of yards after the line of scrimmage. When you look at this run game, Brian, a lot of people were clamoring for Zach Charbonnet to get more time, but you mentioned Ken Walker and just the potential that he still has here, even in year 4. What are your expectations for those two guys? Because I think all of us know that, second-round picks, that's a lot of investment in one position, 2 second-round picks, actually. So where do you see this run game going, especially now with this new commitment to it and Mike Macdonald making it the focal point of the offseason?
Curtis, I mean, that's like asking Stacy, do you want ice cream or cake? What's the answer?
It's ice cream.
Well, it's why not both? Why not both? That's the answer. So
Stacy's got weird food opinions.
I know. There's still a friend of mine who's blocked on Twitter because he said he doesn't like enchiladas,
which I think is weird. That's actually a bad food opinion.
I love that. I love that he's still blocked for it. He deserves it.
I'm never unblocking
don't
him.
Change it. So shout out to Derek for that. But yeah, I honestly mean the why not both part, because I look back at past teams throughout NFL history that have, rushed for maybe 2,200 yards, been a defense that held teams under 20 points, under 19 points. I think that's kind of the style they're looking for. Mm-hmm. You can find Giants teams, you can find dozens of teams, and what they often look like, a lot of them ran this offense, not one, but 2 backs with 800, 900, 1,000 yards. There's a Giants team not that long ago that had 2,000-yard backs. So I think that people are forgetting that the Seahawks barely ran the ball last year, so the pie was very small. I'm going from cake to pie to ice cream, sorry, but
we'll take all of it.
We'll do it all. But there's fewer carries to be had. Now, there's going to be a lot more rushing going on, so I think there's going to be plenty of carries for both those guys, and I do think Kenneth Walker's the guy that you want to feature, though.
I know sometimes listeners, viewers tune in and they're like, Brian, who had the big touchdown? Who had these big moments? But I am sure that you also like to take in the things that aren't as obvious at camp. So I don't even know what your answer to this will be, but when you're here just kind of walking around, you're standing on the sidelines, you're able to watch all these practices, and this includes OTAs and minicamp. For you personally, what are things that you like to watch for that can kind of tell you about the direction a team is moving in or the vibe that you get from a team?
I think warm-ups are a fun thing to pay attention to because you see which players kind of come together. And one of the things I've noticed is the tight ends have started like huddling up. And I asked AJ Barner about that yesterday, like how'd that start? And Eric Saubert apparently started that. And he makes the rookies in that room come up with a quote every day.
Stop.
Yeah. And I was like, are these inspirational quotes?
It's just being a great reporter.
Right. And so, he had some funny stories to tell about that. But like, you see that's a young room. You see the offensive line. I was interviewing Charles Cross, and he waved over the rest of the offensive line because he wants them all in there. This is a guy who, even though he's coming into his 4th season, he's still like 23, 24. He's very young, but he's trying to step into a leadership role. And that's a young room that needs leaders to step forward. So things like that, I tend to notice. I've really been enjoying watching John Benton, Rick Dennison, Justin Out, and all those guys install this scheme. They're splitting off the left side of the line from the right side of the line, and they're working. Like, I'll watch John Benton literally take one foot in front of the other to space out exactly how far he wants the splits to be between the offensive linemen, and they'll stop and redo things. The amount of attention to detail, like, I just see it there, and I'm encouraged by what that can translate into.
Awesome.
Yeah. Where have your eyes been going towards mostly in practice here the last couple of days? Because obviously people who are up on the berm, you're just kind of watching the ball. You're just, watching, the quarterback throw. But there's so much else going on when these practices are going on. Have you felt yourself kind of drawn to one position group over another?
Well, I mentioned the offensive line a bunch, so I won't keep going there. But I've been looking at receiver, partially because – as I said, I have some questions about how much speed is in there, how much like playmaking is in there. And so Torrey Horton, the first 2 practices he's had have been the last 2 days. And I thought he had a really nice day yesterday. The other place that my eyes go are probably where a lot of people's eyes are going is the quarterbacks. And I thought Sam Darnold has had a really nice start to training camp. I think the shaky first day is well in the rearview mirror. And the story for me yesterday was Jalen Milroe. That guy, his mechanics are so much smoother. He's throwing such a pretty ball out there. And while a lot of the first and second string plays were making the right decisions to check down, right? That's a good thing to do if the guys aren't open. Jalen Milroe was pushing the ball down the field against, again, third string, but still a lot of those passes weren't hitting the ground. He was making some big plays, and he's not making them with his feet. And we all know how explosive he can be on the ground. So if he can keep this trajectory going, it's easy to imagine a year or 2 from now that this guy is going to be a difference-making starting quarterback.
Yeah, it was his best day, I thought, of anything.
For
We've
sure.
at least seen in an open practice.
Yes.
Easily.
Yeah.
Not easily, but it was notable.
Yes.
I have a double barrel question, but it's a fun one.
Okay.
And I think it'll be an easy one for you.
All right.
So we're going to look at the defense. And what's so interesting is we have pretty much every returning player plus Lawrence compared to offense. We're talking about, what to expect from these guys. So just looking at defense, you're going to be choosing 2 players here. Someone that either based on the offseason or your own expectations, you think has a high ceiling. You think we will be talking a lot about this guy this year. And someone you hope we're talking about a lot this year.
That's a really fun.
And it's okay if it's the same name.
That's fun. No, that's boring.
Yeah.
Let's give you 2.
I think it's fun to split it up.
So someone I think that they're going to be talking about, and someone that I hope.
Yeah.
So Byron Murphy is the hope.
Yeah.
And realistically, he could be the answer for both, but I'll give you a second. So he is so important to the future of this team. And as much as Leonard Williams was just a game wrecker last year and will be again this year, you hope, he is on the older side or older side of his career. And Byron Murphy, is going to get a chance to play in more places, 3 tech and other places where he'll get to rush the passer a little bit more. I think this guy has got, sky high potential. And if he breaks out the way I expect him to, there'll be a lot of conversation about him. The next guy that I would offer there is Derek Hall. I think Derek Hall is somebody who, I heard your interview with him, which
he's so much more confident.
Fantastic.
It's crazy.
Fantastic.
I mean, he's always been confident.
Yes.
But it shows.
Yes. And, he's out there building his big trucks and
Fishing.
and,
Doing lots
and all
of fishing.
that. But this is a guy that no longer has to wonder if he belongs in this league after 0 sacks his first year and 0 real impact plays. he was a game wrecker at times, and I think his ceiling is much higher. And it's going to be really interesting. Him, Boye Mafe, that whole edge group is going to be interesting. I'm not sure they're done adding to that group, and we'll see if they make a move to add, and then you'll get Uchenna Nwosu back at some point as well. So really, really interesting group, and I think Derek Hall's got a lot to go.
All right, tell listeners before we unfortunately have to kick you out of here. We really enjoyed you being generous with your time, but you are gonna get out there, get ready for your show. Obviously, your takeaways from practice, which is set to start in a couple hours. Tell listeners where they can find some of those takeaways from today's.
Yeah, so YouTube, look for Hawk Blogger, Instagram, TikTok, wherever you are, just look for Hawk Blogger, and also give a shout out for HBTix, HBTIX.com. Only place that you can sell Seahawks tickets and make sure they're going to Seahawks fans.
There you go.
Ooh,
so let's make sure I don't get anything off of this. It's not a business venture. It's just something I've started to make sure that you have a place to sell Seahawks tickets to Seahawks fans.
All right, here's Brian Nemhauser. Brian, thank you so much.
Thanks for having me, guys.